Good evening, YouTube. Hardball Crazy come back with video. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I had a pretty good one. Family as well. I ate well too. But now it's back to reality. I'm back to work and everything. And hope everybody enjoying this holiday weekend. Uh, Tonight is mail day. It's a player I kind of discovered and if you read the title, it's kind of sort of like a clickbait title. It's not current players. This has happened to back in the 40s, and this is probably a little piece of history, baseball history that's not talked about or not known too much. I think it was mostly due to because there's lack of Hall of Famers or real stars that participated in this, but it could have been. 20 players, yes, 20 plus players were banned from baseball at once. Um, Back in the mid 1940s, uh, business mogul Jorge Pascual and his brothers tried to start up a startup league in baseball, Mexico, and to compete against the MLB. Kind of familiar with sort of uh, um, sounds similar to the like the Federal League, Jorge Pascual, being a successful businessman and a very outward personality, think of somebody like a Steinbrenner or a George or a Trump or something like that. Started throwing money around and trying to persuade a whole bunch of Major League Baseball players to come down and play in Mexico and for a whole lot more money and promise more of a better life. Of course, this is the same time where the much earlier than the free agency and the reserve clause is still much in effect, and players were still owned by the players. They had no way to move on their own recourse. This was enticing to some of the players. So there's 20 some players who did jump towards signing with the Major League Base into Mexico. Um, there's the Pascual did try to lure likes of Stan Musial, Ted Williams, I believe Phil Rizzuto, and a few others, but unsuccessfully. Of course, some Negro League stars did follow suit, did jump to Mexico, likes of Satchel Paige, Ray Dandridge, Quincy Troop, Monty Irvin. They all jumped to Mexico. Of course, they're all Negro Leaguers. They're all um, were used to jumping from team to team, organization to organization, league to league. So there was no bad publicity. But at the time, one other player, Vern Stevens, did jump, agreed to play, played like 2 games, but never really did anything more. So he came back and never got really suspended. But the biggest star at the time, who went on to play into Mexico, was this gentleman here. This is Max Lanier. He was a star pitcher for St. Louis Cardinals. Um, he was the biggest star in the mid 1940s. He was a two-time All-Star, two-time World Series champion. Had some really great years in the early mid 40s. But in 45 and the 46, when the Pascual and brothers um, pretty much doubled his salary, promised to double his salary, he jumped and without notice his teammates. All of a sudden, his teammates saw his locker was gone and he left. And he was the biggest star, the biggest fish that ended up going. Uh, Commissioner Happy Chandler said this didn't like this, so he banned all the players who jumped to Mexico, and says you're banned. Tried to protect the reserve clause, um, but these players play for several years. Then some tried to get back, and they were still banned. One of the players from New York, named is Gardella. He sued Major League Baseball with reserve clause, and they ended up settling out. And by 49 or so, all the players were reinstated. into the league, and Lanier came back with the Cardinals, and was good, but nothing like he was earlier. He had a career that was a win over 100 games. His ERA is a 3.01 for his career, and with ERA plus like a 126, 127. So he was basically, for his whole career, he was 26, 27% better than the league average pitcher. So he still had a good career, but Max Lanier was the biggest name at the time, being jumping. Actually, Major League players, of course, the Negro League players with bigger names like Satchel Paige and Monty Irvin and Ray Dandridge. One other footnote on Max Lanier, if you're familiar with Astros manager Hal Lanier in the 80s, that's Max's son. This banishment, this jumping into the players into the Mexican League, is just another chapter into the baseball's players trying to fight the reserve clause. I think just made it one little step a little bit closer to making it true, even though Curt Flood's battle was a decade or so later, a couple decades or so later, and but this is another chapter in the baseball struggles to player struggles to for free agency, but most baseball fans didn't know about. As for that Mexican League, it did fold in around 1954 or so, 55, with infighting and between the higher ups, Pascual and others. Pascual ended up dying in a plane crash like a year later after the league folded, and another startup of Mexican professional league is like a minor league AAA type association, and this still goes on. But Mexicans try to Pascual and others try to have a professional baseball league that try to compete with Major League Baseball, and it lures some players here. And one other thing is, if you look at the band of players, you go on and do a search. One name you probably stick out was the beginning of his career. Sal Maglie was one of the players, but he was the very beginning of his career. And of course, he had a pretty stellar career post Mexican foray, so he might be the biggest name that for us baseball fans of modern day would recognize. But at the time, he wasn't the star that Max Lanier was. So imagine if, say, Stan Musial or Ted Williams decided to jump, and they were banned for a 4 or 5 year period after World War II. Kind of a what if situation. But Max Lanier, proud to add this rookie card to my collection. A little piece of footnote in baseball history that not many know of, and here to teach you a little about it. And hope you enjoy the video, and thank you for watching.